When I first took my son out of school and he would have been in year one, that's what I thought it would be. And I was like, yeah, I can do this, and I had my youngest was a baby at the time, so she was kind of easy. I'd just pop her in the sling and sort of focus on him. I think it might have even started before she was even around. But, I bought all the workbooks from the shops and I thought, yeah, we're going to sit and do this. And I think I remember sitting in a coffee shop and trying that with him and him just literally just melting and going, oh, I can't do it. And he just wouldn't learn from me, and he didn't want to, and it just didn't work for us and our relationship. And I kind of decided quite quickly that I don't want to have that relationship and that role with my children. I want to guide them and I want to give them all the opportunities, but perhaps I'm not the best placed person to do it. And you'd think, you'd sit there all day for, at school. How come you can't sit for 20 minutes with me? But it's a different thing.
And we're rolling. Welcome to the Parenting Truths podcast. Today, I'm joined by Crystal Miles, who's founder of Connection Cards, mum of two, and certified infant massage instructor, who's taught infant massage to thousands of families. So thanks for joining me, Crystal.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
So we actually met a couple of weeks ago at the baby show, which was nice. You offered to be my photographer for a few minutes. What were you at the baby show for? Were you there on work or were you there just as a visitor?
I was meeting with the sales team actually to talk about potentially future talks, being on panels, stands, and also my friend was speaking on the panel, another friend. So I was there to support her and also be her camera person. So a day of filming for people.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it was my first time at the baby show. I couldn't believe how hectic it was. I think that was one of the busiest days. But I think they do 4 shows across the UK, don't they, every year?
Yeah, they're there. I think Birmingham, I'm not sure where the other one is, Manchester, 2 in London. The last time I went was as an expectant parent, I think. So it was quite strange to be there in a different capacity.
Yeah, it was nice to see so many excited, expecting parents all in one place. It was quite a surreal experience. So before we dive in, you've had quite a unique parenting journey. So could you give us a little overview just for context, sort of how old are your little ones, or should I say bigger ones, and how your journey has sort of progressed over the years?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, I'm a mum of 2. So I have a son who is 13. So I've hit teenage years, and my daughter is 9. So just over 4.5-year age gap between the two, as we actually lost one in the middle there as well, similar to yourselves in mid-trimester. I suppose a lot of people think we have a fairly alternative lifestyle because my children don't go to school. So my son started there, but we took him out for various reasons, and my daughter's never been to school. I don't like the term home educated because we don't really do much at home. I'm more of a taxi driver, taking them to all their different provisions and their groups and their learning spaces. But yeah, I guess that's what people will familiarize it with would be the home ed term. And we have always followed again, what's the right word? I'm not a fan of parenting labels, but I suppose what would be known as a kind of gentle parenting approach. I call it an instinctive approach because it all led just from having that first baby and going, what do I do with this? And listening to the instincts for things that I'd been told I should do, or I'm actually the youngest of 6 myself. I've got lots of siblings and I was an auntie since I was 6.
Oh, wow.
So I'd seen people's parenting journeys and was always quite vocal in telling them what they should do with their babies from what I thought you should do. And then when I had my own going, actually, this is different and that doesn't work and they don't want to be put down. So we kind of ended up really naturally approaching a kind of instinctive, responsive parenting route because they wouldn't be put down, or they didn't like the buggy, or they didn't want to go in the cot. So all these things we wasted money on. So I'd say we've kind of followed that route. We are a family who like to be in nature a lot. My husband runs actually an alternative provision, a school for children that are out of the system, and on a site where we used to live, which is an environmental centre. So we kind of lived in a cabin in the middle of the woods, really, for about 8 years, which is where we raised them when they were really little. We like to be in nature, we like to be outside, we like to travel a lot. But that's us in a nutshell, I suppose.
And in terms of I know you said you're not keen on the term, but the educating at home sort of transition, was that a big transition for you? Because I've spoken to a few parents that would love to do it, but they feel, they wouldn't have the time, or, both parents work. How was that transition for you? Was it a big thing, or was it just natural and you sort of went with the flow? Did you have a plan in place?
I feel like I can almost tick all those boxes. I think we went with the flow. We both work full time. My husband and I, we're both self-employed and we run our own businesses. So, it's a juggle and it's busy. And I quite often joke with other parents, that's the best decision I think I've made for my children, but the worst one I've ever made for myself. But actually now I feel that we've got to a place where we have a really nice balance. So as I said, they're not sitting at home at the table and I'm their teacher. I kind of know my own limitations there as well, and often don't have the time. So we outsource a lot. There's such an amazing community. So, they have so many groups and shared learning experiences. And there are a few places where they go, like my husband's provision, for example. So we're very lucky there, where they can be somewhere else for, at least 3 full school days there somewhere. So I can still work and we can find that balance. But, it took us a lot of time to find that flow that we have now. And it feels really good now. And I feel confident in our decision now, but I can't say it's always been that way. And it's kind of trial and error a little bit, and finding your own way, and certainly finding your community and your people to kind of make it all work. But yeah, at first I think I tried to do like everyone did in COVID, this whole idea that you sit and you learn at home, and that just doesn't work for us as a family. And I think a lot of home educators don't actually do it that way. We were all kind of thinking, wow, how do people do home learning during COVID? That's insane. We wouldn't even try that with our kids. So yeah, we've kind of found our groove, but yeah, it's been yeah,
I think probably one of the biggest misconceptions is you assume the parent is going to get the children up at 7, but by 8 o'clock you're all sat at the table with your workbook and you're at the head of the table with a whiteboard. But I guess it just isn't like that at all.
No, when I first took my son out of school and he would have been in year 1, that's what I thought it would be. And I was like, yeah, I can do this, he, I had my youngest was a baby at the time, so she was kind of easy. I'd just pop her in the sling and sort of focus on him. I think I might have even started before she was even around. But I bought all the workbooks from the shops, and I thought, yeah, we're going to sit and do this. And I think I remember sitting in a coffee shop and trying that with him, and him just literally just melting and going, oh, I can't do it, and he just wouldn't learn from me, and he didn't want to, and it just didn't work for us and our relationship. And I kind of decided quite quickly that I don't want to have that relationship and that role with my children. I want to guide them and I want to give them all the opportunities, but perhaps I'm not the best placed person to do it. And you'd think, you'd sit there all day for, at school. How come you can't sit for 20 minutes with me? But, it's a different thing. So, yeah, so a lot of trial and error and finding our groove. But, workbooks, not so much. Now they're older, they do a lot of online learning and they can do kind of independent lessons. And, it's a bit different. But I think, especially early doors, we certainly went for more of a Scandinavian approach, where we didn't really do a lot of formal learning or teaching with them until they were much older, and they were actually kind of asking us, I want to learn to read and I want to learn about this, and can we go to this museum and the library, and we would just follow their interests and kind of give them space, especially my son who came out of school, give him a period of time to find a love of learning again and kind of lead that for us. So yeah, that's the route we try to take. It sounds really idyllic, in reality it's madness, and there's lots of plates spinning and juggling and asking for favors, and but it works. I think, as I say, we finally kind of settled and found our way.
And apologies for being naive, and this is just a general wondering. As your children grow and progress, in the back of your mind, do you have anything like do they lead up to their GCSEs and things like that, or is that completely just parked and you just go and you're just led by them?
No, so that's kind of where we are at the moment with my son. So he'd be at secondary school now. He's 13, but he's August born, so he'd be quite young for the year. So I think he'd be going into year 10 this year. I think I'm not good with years. I've lost track of the system. He's actually sitting his first GCSE this year at 13. So he is sitting his first one. And he's also studying in September. He's starting 2 different GCSEs that go over 2 years, and he's doing a couple of lessons. He does one online. You can do the IGCSEs. So he's studying for English literature. He's doing his sciences. So all those opportunities are still there. And that's something we've always said. We're not against school. I always want to say that really clearly. I loved school personally. They were the best days of my life. I had a great time. My husband had a different experience, but it was just, it doesn't work for every child or every family. And I've got nothing against it, but, there are things I would like to see changed. But for us, it just seemed to make sense to go this way. But we always said we don't want to close any doors to them. We always want them to have all the opportunities and never feel that we stopped that or closed anything. But equally, it opens up all these new opportunities. So he's doing a GCSE in something that, that you don't even see at school. He's got friends who've just done them in, a GCSE in astrology or, it's really sort of things that aren't always there. We go paddleboarding and rock climbing, and we, travel, and we have all these different opportunities. So I think, so we can still do them. I would say it's not a cheap choice. We're by no means well off. We prioritize and, like everybody does, and decide how we want to run our lives. But GCSEs in particular, I said my son's doing his first one this year, and it costs £200 to sit. So yeah, it's interesting, but they can still do all of that. And so that's good. And they can do them at their own pace. So we're sort of staggering his, rather than that, sit down and do 11 in a year. That kind of sounds mad when you think about it, when you're doing it differently. But question, I go off on tangents. Sorry, I think that's
so Luca's just coming towards the end of year one at the moment, and you're starting to see, and it's not a qualm on the teachers, because they've got 30 kids to look after, but there's so many things that you just want to speak to the teacher about. And thankfully that you can be open and honest with them, but you also, when your child is in school, need to appreciate that teacher needs to manage or look after 30 kids. So, but you're starting to see all the little kids have got their different personalities, and it just doesn't work expecting them all to follow the same path and all to sit when being told. And the kids that don't sit when they're told get not punished but penalized and spoken to. And it's just quite hard to watch some of the kids who are amazing kids in their own particular way, but maybe they aren't they don't fit into that mold, and they're sort of being pushed a little bit down the path, and it's quite challenging to see. But school just isn't for everyone, is it?
Have you seen, and there's that famous kind of meme that knocks around, and it's all the animals. You've got like an elephant and a snake and a fish in a goldfish bowl, and then the quote is, "For a fair test, you'll all climb this tree." And I think that kind of sums it up for me. I think the thing is sometimes, as you say, expecting everyone to be the same and to think the same and to want the same path, and that's, that's something I just love to see improved in schooling. I'd love, schools to be, except it's hard, as you say. How do you manage, so many children, and often they're oversubscribed, and they have to cover, the pressure from curriculums or Ofsted or governments to cover certain things. So it's hard to have that flexibility. But I think, my son was a teacher's dream at school. Like he, they praised him, they loved him, they said he was so well behaved and such a good boy and so smart, all the things that you think that parents want to hear, and the teachers love it. But we knew as his parents that he would then come home and just let it all out, because we were his safe space, and he was just exhausted, and the mental exhaustion of conforming. He was such a conformist to the point, sometimes small things, he'd come home and say, "Oh, I got told off today." Oh no, sorry, not I got told off. He was saying some boys got told off. They were pushing me in the line, and I didn't like it. And I was like, "Well, did you tell the teacher?" And he's like, "Oh no, you're not allowed to talk in the line." I was like, "Well, that doesn't mean you can't speak to the teacher." Like he's somebody who took rules so literally that it just didn't kind of work for him. So and then it got to a point where he would kind of feign illness, or we just noticed that we had concerns about his mental health and his anxiety around going to school, and that he was spending all day trying to behave, I suppose, how he's been asked to, but and it was just a lot for him. And then he'd released that when he was with us, and we got to a point where we thought, let's try something different.
There was one occasion where a few of us, as in the parents, had to speak to the school and speak to the teacher, because I don't know if you are familiar with the Dojo app that they've started introducing in schools. So essentially in the class they've got a visual leaderboard where someone's at the top, someone's at the bottom, and they're rewarded and given points for any it could be anything. It could be, sitting quietly or listening or anything, and they're quite publicly rewarded for that. But I'm in no way keen on that, and I've made my opinions clear. But there's not much you can do. You can't change the school. But they were introducing it in a very strange way, where on Monday they could be rewarded for something, but on Wednesday, if they did something, I didn't listen, didn't put toys away, points were taken away, and they'd quite publicly be moved down the leaderboard, which I thought was completely unacceptable, especially for 4 or 5-year-olds. You don't give someone a pat on the back on a Monday and they struggle on a Wednesday and quite publicly get shamed for that. Thankfully, they've removed that. I'd like the whole thing to be removed, but that's a separate conversation. But was anything like that in place when your son was in school, or was that probably more of a recent thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was that parent. And I think it's good, obviously, I think, if you give your children a good foundation, sometimes they can understand like, school do things differently, and you have to kind of toe the line and follow the rules sometimes. And maybe you've got like a grandparent who thinks differently to you, and then you kind of let them understand that, it's okay, this is how we do it, but we just have to kind of go along with it sometimes. But when it was important, I'd be down there. I was definitely kind of getting myself a reputation, because sometimes I just think, why? Actually, what, I'd ask them, well, the question I used to always say was, well, how does that support my child's education? And they could never really answer that question. But yeah, we had this very similar thing, but it was a traffic light system. So, everyone starts on, depending on the school, I know they did it differently, but in his school, I think everyone sort of started on green, and then you can go down to amber or red, depending on your behavior. And other schools used to start on amber, and you could go up or down. But again, it depends on personalities, because my son at the time, one day, actually it was a collective punishment thing where the class were talking or something, and they all went down, and he was absolutely traumatized. He'd never left green because he was so scared to do anything out of line. And then he came home, he was distraught. He was so upset, and it just was like, I don't know. I think it's probably more interesting to speak to somebody like my husband about this as a teacher and as someone who runs an alternative provision. We don't have any behavioral methods. And everyone's like, teachers often say, well, how do you even function? How does that work? And we're like, because, it does. You actually have that mutual respect for the children, and it works both ways, and you don't have these kind of high expectations. And then you find that they have this intrinsic motivation where they actually, they respect you and you respect them, and then therefore they're not difficult. And so it's a different setting as well. There's no kind of sitting in classrooms, or it's very kind of outdoors and nature based, and they don't sit and write down and sit at desks. They're playing, and they learn through play and exploring and doing different things. But yeah, I mean, he would speak more about this, but he can say actually, kind of a good teacher shouldn't need these things. Let's make this a bit out there, but it's a big statement, but.
Yeah, I know. And I guess the challenging thing for us with the dojo points is that none of it was communicated to the parents. And I think mine and my wife's point was, we need to all be on the same page. Like, obviously we can't tell you what to do. If you are going to start introducing these things, we need to be aware so we can actually support our little one from home, and have conversations about the dojo points. What do they mean? If a child comes out on a Friday and they've been pipped at the post, because at the end of the week, whoever's top of the leaderboard gets a reward. And it's just so complex for like a 5-year-old. If the parents aren't even aware of it, there's a completely different life happening, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. The one that gets me was the attainment, and again, I don't blame the teachers. I don't blame the schools. They've got these targets. They've got outside organisations saying you must achieve these things. But I know families whose if their children were there 100% attendance, they got a cinema trip, or they got to have ice cream, or they get an award. And I just think, what message does that give us? Especially in this time when we're actually, people are starting to talk about children's mental health and what's important, and actually what message is that? It's saying, don't stop, don't rest, don't look after your health, just push through, because you might go to the cinema or you might get an award. And I can't on attainment rewards. That's my biggest bugbear, I think.
No, even fines have come in now if you pull your child out of school to to take them away, when, you know, a weekend away in Devon or Cornwall is going to probably give them a lot more than, you know, a Friday in school at the age of 5.
Yeah, we love to travel with our children, and that's actually another kind of thing that there was a pushing point, and that was one of them, where they were trying to fine us, or they wouldn't approve our absence. And I think we were taking them to Jordan, or somewhere really, somewhere amazing, and they were going to have this amazing experience. I think, well, but the school can take them on holiday, and the school can take them on residentials, or the school can close for a polling day, and none of those things are going to ruin their education. But all of a sudden, as the parent who wants to give them an experience, it seemed wrong. But again, I think I understand the challenges, because they're just adopting a blanket approach, aren't they? It's this rule for everybody because it's much quicker and easier than to look at people as individuals. But they just, why? And they're upping those fines I saw in the news recently to charge even more. And it's like, what's who are you punishing here, and what's the purpose, and what might they learn on this, on this other trip? Or I don't know. For me, I don't like I saw a term that I quite liked. I don't like to co-parent with the government, it said. And I thought, by putting the child into to choosing for them to have an education, why does that take away, your parental rights or your judgment as to what's best for that child? I don't know. So yeah, I did say I'm not anti-school. I'm really not. I think it works really well for a lot of children as well. And as I said, I loved it. It was a great time for me. But there are different ways, I think, as well.
So before we move on, are you able to share a little bit about the cabin in the woods, and how long did you live in the cabin in the woods, and is it as cool as it sounds?
Well, probably not. It does sound very cool, doesn't it? No. So when was it? So kind of about 10 years ago now. My husband was a teacher, working in mainstream school, and we had my son and my daughter had just arrived, and we were just looking for something different. We were looking for change. He'd kind of had enough of teaching, and we were quite stuck at the time. We were living in a really small one-bedroom flat, and we felt that we couldn't afford to move, and we'd outgrown it with the family, and we were just looking at all of our options, and I mean all of them. We were looking at one point moving to New Zealand. We were looking at like all these different jobs, and then we were looking for something kind of. He was also a forest school teacher at the time, so he was kind of thinking maybe there's something down that route, or something more outdoorsy, because that's what he enjoyed. Anyway, this when we were looking around websites, this job came up for a warden, so like a site warden for an environmental site. It's an environmental centre. It's actually predominantly a girl guiding centre, and they just wanted someone to live there and to let groups in and out, maintain the site, but also to develop it, because there wasn't much going on with the site in the week. Yeah, so he kind of was interested in that and went along for the job, and got it. But as part of that, basically there was a lodge on the site, on the centre, a decent sized lodge. I say a cabin in the woods is probably a bit of a push, but it looks like that. A nice little lodge. And we basically went to live there, and moved the family to not too far away. That was the other thing that was amazing. It was actually only about 20 minutes from where we were living, in this kind of hidden site that nobody really knew about. So we didn't really feel like we didn't have to uproot our lives completely, or our children had friends, and we had friends and family and work, and it was just actually it just all fell into place really nicely. But as part of the job, we got free accommodation. So essentially it was again a secluded site that was no other houses, nothing else around really. The nearest neighbours probably about sort of 500 metres up the road, and it's like it's a woodland on site, and fields and buildings, like a kind of scout centre sort of place. So we lived there for a good 8 years, I think, until we just needed to change. And that's when he developed the school on site in the week, thinking of ideas about how we could supplement that income, because it was very much you get the house and a little wage, and actually we felt we need a bit more. So, and the site we're looking to develop as well, so he ended up creating his school, his alternative school, on the site in nature, and it all just kind of flowed like that. But yeah, it was an amazing place to live for a long time, kind of the bulk of their kind of early years. Just have that freedom and nature on your doorstep, and you've got a dog, and just walk out into the woods. Especially we were there for COVID, and I think that was just the best. I don't think there's anywhere better we could have been. Okay. We just had, and again, it was that amazing weather that first run, right? And we were just in hammocks in the woods, and we just had nothing to do and we were isolated, and we just had, this centre for the kids to run free, and it was just such a blessing. But so we've left there now. We left there last year, just
Cool.
a bit of a change of direction, but I have a knack of finding unique and beautiful places to live. So we now live in the middle of a park, a very similar setting, but yeah.
Oh, cool. And obviously, where did the sort of infant massage come in for yourself? Because obviously we can't have you on without talking about sort of baby connection and infant massage. So how did you sort of fall into that and start exploring that and helping other parents?
Yeah. So that would be down to my son. So when my son was born, I was quite a young parent for these days. I was just 25, about to turn 26 when he was born. And I kind of moved to where my husband's area where he grew up a few years before. So I didn't particularly feel like I had a network or, people to do this parenting with. And I was certainly did it, my friends are kind of there now doing this. So I was kind of alone in a way. So I was looking for, when I had him, I was looking for baby groups, and I'd go along to the breastfeeding cafes and I'd sort of try and find people. And, we didn't have the money. We didn't do NCT or any of these things. So I just kind of felt like I need to find some friends. And then a lady at work, where I'd left my job to have the baby, she basically had an NCT group and they were doing a baby massage course. And I thought, well, I don't really know anything about that, but I'll come because I need to make some friends. So we went off to this course, and just a 5-week baby massage course, and I loved it so much. I don't think it's probably my fondest memory of having the babies and going to a class or a group, and it was just so different and so nurturing, and for me actually really affirming, because a lot of the infant massage is so much more than strokes. There's a lot about kind of listening to babies, respecting them, understanding their language, bonding and attachment. And I was in the throes of, I've got a new baby and everyone's telling me that I shouldn't be holding them and I shouldn't, let them manipulate me, and I should let them cry, and all the things that our instincts were going no. And it just felt so affirming, and I just loved it. And I cried when the course finished because I just didn't want to leave. And it was such a beautiful ambience and space. And I enjoyed it so much. And of course we could carry on at home, but I loved the course. And it just came at a time in my life where I had just actually, when I went off on maternity leave, I'd just completed my degree. So I trained a lot later because I wanted to travel and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So then as an adult, I went off to do adult education in nutritional therapy. And pretty much after got my my degree, I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, and found it quite draining. And I just didn't love it, and I didn't have the passion or drive to do it. And so I was looking for something else. And when I'd done this baby massage course, I noticed there was all these in the community. There was a big rally to kind of the local free baby massage classes. It's not one that I went to, but they were all being closed down and all the services were being shut. If this really popular baby massage class had been shut down, and I just thought this is a really good time perhaps to offer that. I really loved this. I'm looking for something new to do. I want to work around my baby. I don't want to go back to the job I had. I don't want to go back to work at all, but I need to earn some money and I want to do something. So I looked into it, and I went off to train. So I trained as an instructor when my son was about 9 months old. And I remember it being in central London. My husband would meet me in all the breaks so he could come in and I could feed him. And I was just sitting there in the learnings, just pumping, and because we were breastfeeding. And I just made it work. I just kind of made it happen then. And again, because I think everything in my local area was closing down and the services were being cut and shut, it was a really good time as an independent instructor to go out there and put out my classes. So I was very lucky in that they took off really well. So I just offered classes in the local community for many years. I think kind of 5 or 6 years before I just thought, I love this. I just love it. They say you don't work if you love your job, right? You don't feel like you're doing a day's work. And I just wanted to do more and more courses. And I just thought, this is making a difference to families. It's so rewarding, especially when you're working with more vulnerable parents or additional needs, or any and all parents. But it's not just another nice baby class. I always say it's a lovely nice baby class, but there's so much more to it. And when you see that unfold for a parent who's struggling or has facing depression or is isolated, and you see all these benefits. And I just thought this is so powerful, and I love it so much. So I looked into then going through the process to become a trainer for the association that I taught for. So to do that, you had to have been teaching for at least 5 years and had taught at least, I think it was 500 families, and I'd already taught more than that, and have a bit of a range of experience with kind of maybe special circumstances or additional needs or premature babies or all boxes that I had ticked. So then I went off to do a 3-year process to become a trainer with the International Association of Infant Massage, the IAIM.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a long process, and it just keeps pushing me and driving me. And to now I train instructors. I feel like I wanted to share it, and the best way to share it is to teach more people to share it, and it kind of go on like that. So I can only reach so many people, but if I train 100 instructors this year, then how many families are they going to meet, and so on. So
I think you made a really good point that that was perfect. I was going to say that you make a good point. It offers a lot more than just the massage, doesn't it? Even just providing parents with that safe space, because some, particularly mothers, that might just be, whether it's half hour or an hour, the only sort of hour of social interaction they get with anyone with their new baby, because we all forget quite quickly, but it is very intense, isn't it, those newborn days? And quite often parents need that class, and the infant massage offers a lot more than just the massage, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And in my association, a key element of the class itself is actually allowing time for facilitated discussion. So it's not just, we finished that bit, now we can pre-chat. We kind of facilitate conversations, we help it flow. But something that we insist on is that we, as the instructor, we don't offer advice or judgment or opinion. We just facilitate it, and we let the parents share. Because there's no right way to parent. We know this. There'd be one book if there was one way. And, as the teacher having that status, if you have an opinion on something, then everyone assumes, well, that's the way I should be doing it. So we stay out of that, and we just let the parents share and reassure, and, they can all talk to each other and know that, hey, actually none of us are sleeping, and, social media is fake, and, it's difficult, or and the good too is so easy to go to the negative. But we just, we create this, as you said, a safe space. And, it's not just about parent and baby bonding, the group, if it is a group, the group bond. And then, by week 4, week 5, they're really sharing, often really intimately, and they can often form friendships. I know people who 10 years ago did a class together, and they're still on holidays together, and their children are still friends. And for some people it can be that kind of first link. But yeah, it's an angle that our association took. Obviously, we are very respectful and mindful of the origins of infant massage, which actually it wasn't about bonding and attachment and love, and it was more about growth and strength. And we very much honor and teach the history of infant massage, but our founder, who is credited with kind of sharing it with the Western world, saw, particularly from her own experiences and her own traumas, actually a tool to use that could help with connecting to their babies, or could help with bonding and attachment issues, or get them to know their babies on a deeper level. So that's kind of the angle that we take. It's more about connection and communication. The strokes are the tool that get us there, but it's just so much more than that. And now it was just something that we saw worked, but now we stand on this lovely wealth of evidence and research showing that, yes, actually it can reduce the incidence of postnatal depression. It can improve the connection between, both mothers and fathers and their infants. It can boost their confidence and their self-esteem, as well as all the physical benefits for babies. It's just so much more and so much deeper than that. And I think that's why I fell in love with it. It felt like it's such a enjoyable and accessible way for an activity to do with babies, but we know that in the background it's ticking every main element of bonding, and it's having all these wonderful benefits as well. So let's get you in because it's going to help your baby poo and they're going to sleep better. That's what's going to get you into my class. But then we know that all this is happening in the background, and that's why we are chosen to teach a lot of NHS workers, children's centre staff, perinatal nurses, people that support families, because we see this all day long. So yeah, it's really special. It's lovely to watch. watch it unfold.
Obviously now you're creating and sharing a lot of sort of relatable content on social media, which is amazing because obviously it takes the message and tries to spread it far and wide. I don't know if you get many interactions, but are there many misconceptions around sort of baby massage that you see come up often, or myths that you sort of want to squash? Are there anything that come up time and time again, or?
Yeah, how long do we have? Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest myths, again, it's about how people's understanding of infant massage, and I think the key things are respect and permission. I think these are really key. So, it's not something that we do to babies. It's something that parents and babies do together. And we know that there's very few contraindications if we respect and listen to babies. So, we ask their permission to massage them. We observe their language and we help parents to understand it so that we know when we should step back or when it's time to stop, or if they're enjoying it and it's going well. But, sometimes there's a myth that's just something that we just do because it's it makes them good and strong. And again, there's a nod to the cultural heritage of that, where perhaps that's how it was used, but that's just not the angle that we're taking. A lot of time you hear, oh, let's have a massage after a bath or before bed. That's probably the most common one I hear. And again, in our courses, we help parents understand about their baby's states. So babies are in, 6 different behavioural states across the day. There's kind of awake states, sleep states, drowsy states. And we know that the best one to try baby massaging is what we call this quiet alert state. So often you'll hear parents go, oh, I tried baby massage, but my baby just cried and they hated it. So they don't carry on, but actually they maybe didn't get the right education to know that there's, it sounds obvious, but not for everybody, that there is actually an ideal, an optimum time to try it. And in that window, they're likely to respond the best, to be more relaxed, to learn more from the stimulation around them. So we were looking for this kind of quiet alert window. And it's quite rarely, depends, every baby's unique, but for a lot of them, it isn't. When you speak to parents, it's not before bed. Before bed is cluster feeding time, or it's the witching hour, or it's colic, or it's, so it can be really difficult, or they're overtired. And equally after a bath, well, that sounds lovely. Oh, have a bath and do a massage. I get why that sounds really nice, but how does the baby respond to their bath? Are they relaxed? And a massage is perfect time for them to have a massage then, or are they just asking for milk and they're tired, or they want to go to sleep and it's just not the right time? So there is no right time for massage, there's a right state. So that's probably a myth that comes up a lot. And then there's a lot around when you can start. There's rules, there's all these restrictions on nurturing touch, which is kind of very kind of, where's this come from? It's kind of, again, a very Western approach. In many cultures, massage their babies from birth, and so long as it's done, in our eyes respectfully, and the baby's giving engagement, yes cues, and they're comfortable and they're happy, then there's no reason why you can't start. So there's no kind of, you have to wait for 6 to 8 weeks, or you can't massage them after they've had a feed, or you can't massage them after they've had vaccinations. These are things that we hear all the time. I'm not really sure where they came from, because as an association with lots of trainers with lots of experience, we've got doctors and scientists and nurses and parents, and we speak to immunologists and people who know, and we've never found any evidence to support any of these claims. So it's instinct. If our babies are born, we soothe and we nurture and we stroke them. So why, who's saying all of a sudden we can't do this until they're 6 weeks old? And this is a key window as well, isn't it? If you think about postnatal depression, baby blues, colic, actually this is a key time to be massaging, bonding. Yeah. So the ones I can think of off the top of my head. But
I think the sort of the content you share and create on Instagram is really important, because you rarely see these conversations happening sort of in mainstream media. And when you do, I don't know whether it's clickbait or anything like that, you get silly sort of headlines like "Mum says now that we need to ask babies permission before we change their nappy," and it's such a shame, because they got someone on the show or to write an article to capture some really important information, and they're just using it and either vilifying the mother, and the message just gets completely lost, doesn't it? I don't know if you're aware of the things I'm talking about, but it is a real shame.
Yeah, I do. I remember that article, and I remember the lady Lottie, who was on the news about it, because I did a training course with her. I can't remember which one, but I've met her, and I saw that. I remember this article coming out because I remember responding to it and saying exactly what you just said. We need the sensationalism. We need the headlines, like, how ridiculous that you would ask your baby permission. And sometimes in classes, actually, it's the ritual of permission is one of the first things that we teach, and people look at you like you're a bit mad. And they think, ask my baby permission. And I'll say to them, although they can't say, oh, yes, mother, I'd love to have a massage, thank you very much, or father, they can tell us with their body language, their facial expressions, their body language, the sounds that they make. And these are the things that we help parents understand through nurturing touch. And what I love about massage, when we say, well, what did you learn about your baby at the end of the course? If they're talking about cues, or they say, oh, I learned what my baby likes and doesn't like, then I sort of internally high-fiving myself, because that's our goal. We want parents to understand their babies better, and this is the tool that we're using to do it. But there's so many things that people just do to babies, and they just have no concept that they're actually kind of living, feeling beings. It's not that long ago, actually. I think it was 1986 where the law came in that actually we have to give anaesthetic to babies because they can actually feel pain. Before that, procedures were being done to babies. Okay. And you just think, because they don't have a voice, and that's my passion in life, is to give babies a voice.
Yeah.
We can learn, we can read so much before words. We can know what they're telling us, and why not ask them? There's another analogy I use. It's like when people, with a toddler or something, and we've all done it as a parent, but they've got a snotty nose and you just run up behind them and just grab a tissue and just grab their nose. Imagine how you'd feel as an adult if you're sitting here right now and out of nowhere a hand comes and just grabs your nose. And I just think it's just about respect, isn't it? It's just, anyone would like to be to have some consent about what's done to them. So of course, in that article you're talking about, the baby, of course, is going to have their nappy changed. No one's, saying, oh, they're going to sit in a pooey nappy for a year because this parent respects their baby and the baby didn't say they could. It's just about talking to them, isn't it? Just talking them through it and explaining why we're doing things, or this is what I'm going to do. Are you okay with that? Or I have to do this even sometimes, with their parent. But sensation, it's always the way.
Yeah, I think a great tip for parents is such a healthy habit to get into, just whether it's sportscasting or narrating or talking to your little one from birth, because, Mia is 15 months old now. If she needed a nappy changed even now, if I just picked her up, put her on the floor and changed her nappy, it would be chaos. But obviously, if I'm a lot calmer, talk to her, let her know what we're going to do, it's going to be a lot more of a calmer process than literally just grabbing the baby and change their nappy there and then. So it's a great habit to get into, even through toddlerhood, in terms of transitioning from one task to the other. Little ones struggle with that. Giving them an early heads up, letting them know what's coming. It's such a great habit to get into, just talking about things, narrating. Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool. To close out each episode, I ask my guests 3 questions, if that's okay, just quick fire questions. Obviously, it sounds like you've been very sort of intentional about the way you want to parent, and you've made some quite big decisions for sort of you, your partner, and your family. But the first question is, knowing what you know now as a parent, what advice would you give yourself before you became a parent?
I love this question. I think I give myself the same advice that I tend to give every friend or acquaintance that has a baby, and I send them a card and I write the same thing in every single card, and it is to trust your instincts and to follow your heart. I think I wasted a fair bit of time trying to do things with my first baby because I thought I should, but my instinct was shouting at me that it was wrong. So just trust that, and you can't go wrong. There's no right way or wrong way to parent. It's your way and what's right for you and your family. So that would be my advice.
Absolutely. And what's the one thing you feel you need to work on as a parent?
I think we're all, especially in this generation, there are many of us that are breaking cycles, and I get, triggered very easily by small things, and often it takes a lot of thought or to process and to respond in a different way to how I was parented. So I think I need to work on patience and presence. I think always, especially in this modern age, and we're busy. You know, we have such a busy family life with all the home ed and both working and, you know, self-employment, 2 businesses to run. So it can be easy to get distracted by everything that needs doing and all the work. So I think just working on that presence and trying to be, you know, make the quality moments quality at least.
Yeah. And to close out, what's the best thing, if you can think of one, about being a parent?
Best thing about being a parent, the thing that jumps to my mind is we call it our little team. I think we've got sometimes if someone's away, or my husband's away this weekend, or if one of our children out there older has gone to a sleepover or something, we say like, oh, we're missing a team member, and it just feels like we've got our little team, and you know, no matter what else is going on or the challenges that we have, you know, we have each other and that we're there to support each other. So for me, the best thing is that we've created our own little support system. And especially now they're a bit older, they become your little buddies, or they do from a young age. But you know, now you can kind of hang out a little bit with my teenager and have good conversations. And yeah, so I think that's my favorite thing in this time is our little team.
Cool. Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me, and thanks for being so open and honest about your own sort of parenting journey. Really appreciate that. It's such a unique perspective that you don't hear every day. So thanks for sharing. Also, thank you for all the work you do on Instagram as well. I think, you know, you're taking infant massage, but the content you're putting out is so relatable, and I think you're gonna, if you keep showing up every day, you're going to keep reaching more and more parents. So yeah, just keep up what you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much. And same to you. Back at you.
Cheers. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Crystal, and we'll chat again soon.